People ask me, well, why did you create the book in the first place? So let's start with the why. I was traveling around the world, and I was noticing that people kept asking me, well, how do you stay so happy all the time? Why are you always smiling? And I thought, well, for me, it was just an automatic, natural reaction to living. That's the way that I live. I always say I live magnificently every single day, so that's the way that I felt. But I also realized that there was a formula that I had followed for my entire life. I started when I was in high school. In the 11th grade, I weighed about 250 pounds. And I decided at that point it was time to make a change. What happened was my father had a stroke, and I saw him going from being fat and happy to fat and unhealthy, and it not being the best thing. So I said, well, there has to be a better way of living than that. And that was my first time that I actually realized I needed to go in and make some changes, and the changes were somehow necessary. So that was my first time I looked at my life and I said, I think I need to start taking better care of my health. And Be Responsible simply says, take responsibility for the things that are happening in your life. Now, there's a difference between it's not my fault, because people will say, well, I'm not responsible for everything. It's not my fault. Fault and responsibility are two different things. Saying I'm responsible for it says I acknowledge that I have some part in it. And my part may be just as simple as being at the wrong place at the wrong time. But still, I have to take responsibility for my part in it. I say if you break the word responsibility apart, it's your ability to respond. So life is all about not what happens, but how we respond to what happens. I always say life is just about 10% of the actual fact and about 90% of how you allow yourself to feel or how you allow that situation to affect you. So I say when you step outside of the situation long enough to look and say, where am I responsible for this? And I say if you can't change anything at all, then you just have to change the way you feel about it. Being faithful says that you believe that everything will work out in your favor. I always tell people there's a big difference between religion and faith. And a lot of times people say to me, well, I'm very, very faithful. I go to church every Sunday. And I said, well, there's a big difference between that, because faith is what we practice. Religion is what we learn. So when you separate what you learn from what you actually practice, what you actually practice is your faith. A lot of people go to church and then they come home, and all week long they keep saying to other people, well, I'm going to give that up to God. Well, God gave us 2 hands and 2 feet so that we don't have to give it up to him, so we can take care of it for ourselves. And when we start taking responsibilities, they always flow back on each other. When you take responsibility for yourself, then you have to take responsibility for what your thoughts are. And my very first thought is I have 100% faith that everything is going to work out in my favor, and for that reason, I will participate. And I say being well, I like to call it the 3 R's: rest, relaxation, and reflection. It's so important, one, to rest. Most people are running and running and running and running and always trying to achieve, and they forget that just as important as the running is the rest. So I say find ways to rest your body, find ways to rest your mind, and find ways to rest and enhance your spirit. Your spirit needs that. It's so important for us, in order for us to keep moving forward, for us to pause and breathe sometimes. In that pause and breath, that's when it's a perfect time for reflection. I always say that you always should take 5 minutes a day and just go over your day and review all of the wonderful things that happened today, because you'll find so many of them. Instead of so many people I meet or so many people I know in life review all day long what's wrong with the world. Oh, did you hear about this? Oh, did you hear about that? They love to watch the news and complain, and they love to watch this and complain, and watch their life and complain. I'll say I stopped complaining when I stopped participating. When I started really to participate in my own world, when I started to participate in my own life, and of course, I'm going back from well to faith, being faithful that it was going to be okay. So just knowing that it was going to be okay actually made it okay.